Um, the P&O Ferries dispute is probably the most shocking uh, dispute that I can remember. How would you see it in history of trade union disputes?
Well, it's certainly up there, isn't it? I mean, 800 workers sacked at a moment's notice, really, and told to get off the ship within 2 hours. So, yeah, it is pretty brutal. And of course, we had security guards on hand with handcuffs and balaclavas, and we're hearing even tasers in some places
Wow.
to frog march them off the ship just in case they tried to resist. So I think it's the employers are actually well throwing down the gauntlet, their trade union movement, because if P&O get away with this, every other employer in Britain will be following suit.
I mean, I was watching the select committee, some of it today, and this guy Peter Hebblethwaite said that he didn't consult the union because he didn't think they'd accept the deal. I mean, they're not. It's like they don't even think they have to play by the rules at all. He said as well that he'd broken the law by not consulting the union. He admitted that in the select
Yeah.
committee. Unions have to do almost everything by the letter, don't they? I mean,
Yeah.
you have to ballot people in a certain way, etc. Is there a case for saying the law is no longer something that works at all on this?
Well, I mean, uh, the paltry amount that they would be fined for breaking the law made it worthwhile for them. They totally disregard it. Whereas the trade unions, if we had have broken the law, if we'd have gone on strike without a lengthy balloting period and obeying all the government's legislation, we would have our assets seized completely. The union would have its assets seized and possibly be brought in the total administration. So there's an absolute imbalance. I mean, the anti-trade union laws mean that we have to give weeks' notice before we go into dispute. We then have to conduct a ballot over at least 2 weeks, and then give 2 weeks' notice of action. So it's at least 6 weeks down the line before we can defend anything. And employers can just rock up and tell workers that they're sacked, and the fines are so small that let's face it, it probably was cost effective for them to do that, and that's a massive imbalance between workers and bosses in this country, and that's why the trade union laws. Blair used to boast about them being the most restrictive anti-union laws in Europe, and he was right, and they've only got worse. So yeah, we do need legislative change, and we need trade union leaders who are going to stand up to these anti-trade union laws, because I don't think either a Tory government or a Labour government under Starmer will repeal any of them.
I mean, I'm just thinking about like the RMT. I mean, Bob Crow passed away. Not was it 6 years
7 years
ago?
ago.
7 years ago.
8 years ago now. 8 years ago, I think.
Is that the kind of leader that's lacking at the moment? I mean, if he was around, do you think that the trade union movement would be able to face this? I mean, are we lacking a leader, do you think, in the trade union movement?
Oh, I mean, look, Bob was a figurehead, but the reality is, leaders can only be as militant as their membership allow them to be. And we've got a job of work. We can't rely on one person. What we have to do is raise the political consciousness of working class people everywhere, and raise that trade unionism isn't just an end in itself. Getting better terms and conditions and pay in the short term isn't an end in itself. It's a transformation of society. It's necessary. And when people start to understand that, then I think a whole series of different leaders will emerge, and power should rest at the bottom, where we'll have rank and file committees dictating what our moves should be, rather than bureaucrats sitting in offices. That would be the ideal situation, where workers' committees were springing up and taking control of strikes. And if union leaders weren't prepared to fight, then they would be done away with. They would be superseded.
Right. So yeah. So I mean, do you think this is a turning point in the sense that we know that it can't get much worse? So people have to start changing their tack?
Well, look, the failed tactics of marching from A to B and lobbying MPs and making speeches and getting every worthy under the sun to make a speech. What has it achieved? What has it achieved since 1979 when Thatcher came to power? What has it achieved? Nothing. It's achieved nothing. And we continue with the same banal, ineffectual tactics. You know, we've got to look at ourselves and say, are we serious? Are we serious as a movement? Or are we just prepared to go through the motions and, you know, to protect well-paid positions for union officials? Or are we actually about changing society for the better? And I think that's a question we all have to ask ourselves, you know, from top to bottom in our movement. I mean, I think the problem is we all looking for the Messiah figure when we collectively have to take the reins ourselves, don't we? You know, I mean, that's the reality. No one's coming on a white horse to save us. No one's going to, you know, perhaps we all kind of thought, well, Jeremy Corbyn's here now. We just vote for Jeremy and everything will be all right. And that was just stupid on our part, not his fault. It was stupid on our part. Why did we think that? I suppose because we wanted to believe it because it was easy. The alternative is the massive struggles and the debilitating struggles sometimes that we have to go through on a day-to-day basis. They organise people, they educate people, they get them to fight for their own benefit. And I think that's the way forward. Unfortunately, there's no easy way. But I think that the way that the world is moving, the threat of nuclear war, really, the real prospect of nuclear war, the cost of living crisis, the inability of people to heat their homes, drive a car, and feed themselves, because that's what we're looking at, is going to send shockwaves through British society. And either we on the left are going to be able to organise around that, or we're going to have far right movements trying to organise around that. Because I just don't think that the political centre as it stands at the minute can hold.